Fans are streaming into Scotiabank Arena and the viewing party outside as the Toronto Maple Leafs get set to play their first home playoff game of the season. This is a live look from the CTV News Chopper. Good evening. Excitement is building as the Leafs get set to hit the ice for Game 3.
The series with the Boston Bruins tied at 1, and tonight marks the first appearance of the postseason here at home. CTV's Raheem Ladani is live inside Scotiabank Arena tonight with all the excitement. Raheem.
Michelle and Nathan, good evening. The doors of Scotiabank Arena, they opened about 15 minutes ago, and they are already filing in here into the arena. You can feel the excitement because this is a pivotal Game 3 with the series tied 1-1. And as we found out earlier throughout the day, fans from all over the world have come to watch the Leafs tonight.
The Leafs and Bruins rivalry has turned into a family affair.
I had to bring my mother with me, but she's a Boston fan, so we'll see how the game goes tonight.
Just turn.
From runway fashion to stocking up on snacks, there's a sense of hopefulness ahead of Game 3 in Toronto.
I'm seeing my first playoff game in my life, so there you go. And I've been watching these guys since '59. So please, keep winning.
It's time. It's time that they bring it home.
Flipping it ahead, he's got Matthews in. Matthews scores!
After splitting the first 2 games of the series, the Leafs have an opportunity to gain home ice advantage.
The atmosphere, I think, will be great here at home.
Making sure of that will be these gentlemen who just arrived from Moncton, New Brunswick.
We landed here this morning. Our wives let us show up, and we didn't ask questions.
Leafs passion spreads well beyond the Canadian borders. Just ask Callum, who scheduled this trip from Scotland.
We kind of tried to time it for the games. We're just going to find a bar and watch it.
And then there's Raphael, who's visiting from Switzerland.
I've just fell in love with the team and so many great players on this team, and it's fun to watch. Also the passion of the city, I think it's so cool.
However, one person not enjoying Toronto's playoff atmosphere appears to be Bruins head coach, with Game 4 not being played until Saturday.
I think we're spending more time in Toronto than Toronto's spending in Boston. We're the home team.
Leafs players, though, aren't letting off-ice antics distract them.
If you talk to anyone in this room, we just want to win. We just want to win hockey games.
A strong attitude some lifelong fans have witnessed in the past.
I've seen one Stanley Cup when I was 9 years old, so I'm hoping to see a second one.
And that road to the Cup beginning with beating Boston.
Now, anyone hoping to make their way into Maple Leaf Square, hopefully they got their passes early because they have now all been claimed. None available for tonight. You have to look ahead to Game 4. As for the Leafs lineup, it's still unclear if William Nylander will make his first playoff appearance tonight. If not, a little more adversity for the Leafs to overcome tonight. But hey, that's the playoffs. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. I'll send it back to you both in studio.
Sure is. Thank you, Raheem. Striking gate gourmet workers have received a warning from their employer.
That warning suggests that if job action drags on, the company could lose its contracts at Pearson Airport, putting everyone out of work permanently. CTV's Janice Golding's been following this story and joins us live with more. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Yes, workers for a catering company that services major airlines like Air Canada and WestJet here at Pearson International Airport are still walking the picket line, meaning food service for about 250 flights a day is being impacted. Since last Tuesday, they've been off the job and on the picket line. More than 800 catering workers continuing to strike despite dire warnings from their employer. We have made clear to the union the consequences of a strike that lasts any longer than it already has. A prolonged strike threatens our work at Pearson, reads a statement from Gate Gourmet Canada.
Go back to the table. That's a solution.
The union says, however, a deal could be inked today if the employer bargained in good faith.
How can they explain that the other employers in that industry or around the airport are paying more than what they are paying for their employees here?
Not only that, the union says staff doing the same jobs with the same company are making far more in Vancouver.
Our wares wash people are paid almost $6 an hour difference between Vancouver and Toronto, doing the exact same work. This is totally unacceptable.
But Gate Gourmet says it's presented the union its best offer, meaning the two sides are at an impasse with customers caught in the middle.
Yeah, we're going to try and feed them before we board the flight. Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's kind of annoying. It's par for the course with aviation lately, though, it seems.
I brought chips. I brought snacks.
Gate Gourmet Canada contends it's offered staff a fair deal. As it stands, we presently pay compensation consistent with, if not the highest, any airline caterer at Pearson, and that will increase by 12% under our proposed deal. But the union says on average, workers at Gate Gourmet earn between $17.69 and $20 an hour, about $3 to $6 below the industry standard.
If we're doing the same type of work but getting less, I don't think anybody would be happy with that.
You know, we got people who are working here for over 20 years and they're making less than $20. It's tough, it's difficult.
Striking workers say they know if the company loses Pearson's business, they'll lose their jobs. But they add it's already hard to survive on what they're being paid.
Nathan.
For some context, according to the Ontario Living Wage Network, a living wage in the GTA is just over $25 an hour, which is more than $7 more than what some of these workers say they're making. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Still to come tonight, upping the speed limit on some of the 400 series highways in Ontario. The government announced it is going to allow drivers to go 110 kilometers an hour in certain areas. We'll tell you where you'll be able to go a bit faster just ahead.
But first, let's travel further outside where it's been noticeably cooler out there. But look at this. The clouds have pushed out quite a bit. We're seeing nice sunshine. It is important to take note. It's going to chill right down tonight, enough to warrant a frost advisory. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Doesn't look frosty out there right now.
It's not bad right now. And for the folks heading down to Maple Leaf Square to maybe watch things outside or just enjoy the evening, it's not going to be too bad. We're sitting around 8 degrees at 7 p.m., but that northerly flow to the wind is what adds that bit of freshness out there. Temperature-wise, really right across southern Ontario. After that cold front and that rain from last night and this morning pushed its way out, behind it a much cooler air and a northerly flow to the wind. So we're sitting around that kind of 4 to 8 degree mark for the most part right across southern Ontario. As we head in towards Pearson, the island right now hovering between about 7 and 9 degrees, so it's not too bad. But into this evening, -1, and that's before you factor in any kind of a wind chill, and that is what is prompting the frost advisory this evening. So for the cherry blossoms, any of those temperature-sensitive plants you have out there, you're going to want to cover them if they're yours and if you can. Coming up, a full look at your long-range forecast, including a ricochet on the other end of the temperature scale. But right now, back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. And still to come, parking revenue is on the rise. The cash-strapped city made millions more than expected last year. A teen boy is fighting for his life in hospital after falling from a building in the annex. Emergency crews were called to 371 Bloor Street West, east of Spadina Avenue, shortly after 12:15 p.m. for reports of a person having fallen. Police say a 17-year-old boy was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. The University of Toronto Schools, an independent high school in the area, confirms the teen was one of their students. Police say the circumstances around this boy's fall are under investigation, but are not considered suspicious.
A man's in hospital with serious injuries after a fire broke out at an apartment building in North York this morning. Crews were called to a high-rise on Martha Eaton Way near Black Creek in Trethewey just after 8:30. Paramedics say a man believed to be in his 30s suffered potentially life-threatening burns. There's no word yet on what sparked the fire. Toronto Fire says it was contained to one unit.
Toronto police have announced multiple arrests after a jewelry store robbery earlier this week that was caught on camera. Investigators released this footage from the Danforth and Pape area, recorded Monday. Police say it shows 5 masked suspects who traveled to the store in a stolen vehicle. They are seen smashing displays, taking a quantity of jewelry before taking off. Toronto police say officers quickly arrested 3 of them, an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and 26-year-old man. Each face robbery charges. Police haven't shared any details on the other 2 suspects.
Meanwhile, York Regional Police are showing off the spoils of an effort to stop retail theft in Vaughan. Since the launch of the Theft Project in early December, investigators say they've laid 358 charges against 172 people and recovered over $150,000 worth of stolen property. Police say the crackdown continues as shoplifting increasingly becomes a highly organized criminal enterprise that threatens community safety.
A shortage of primary care physicians is an ailment facing many Ontarians.
From eliminating sick notes to introducing AI, the province is trying to find the right prescription to help ease that shortage. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live tonight with the latest. Siobhan.
Well, doctors say they're losing a full day every week to administrative work. Not a work day, but a full sunrise to sunset kind of day. The government hopes the moves they're making today will mean that doctors spend more time with you, the patient, not hunched over a computer screen. It's access that 2.3 million Ontarians don't have. The expertise of a primary care physician. The thought is those doctors could take on more patients if they weren't bogged down with things like paperwork.
The burden of unnecessary administration takes up an alarming 19 hours a week of physicians' time, keeping them from either patient visits or a healthy work-life balance, or in most cases, both.
The government's trying to even things out, taking some tasks off doctors' to-do lists.
Making changes to prohibit employees from requiring a sick note for a worker's job-protected sick leave.
That's the 3 days a year guaranteed by the province. The OMA says dealing with sick notes gobbles up 4 hours a week. They'd like the notes eliminated altogether, and they aren't alone.
How do you know how sick you were yesterday? They don't. Sick notes serves no purpose. Let's just ban them, no more.
Ontario's also rolling out a tech-based pilot program that eliminates some barriers.
Our government is launching an innovative program called AI Scribe to provide for more than 150 primary care providers.
It's an artificial intelligence tool that listens to conversations between providers and patients.
Organizes the information into a high-quality clinical note that I can review, edit, and use in my chart. And this means that with patient consent, instead of focusing on documentation, I can focus on them.
Critics want to make sure this test is done securely.
So people can be confident that their health information, which we know is the most lucrative globally for cybercrimes, that we are protecting this.
And there's a caution that AI has to come alongside other streamlining for doctors.
Eliminating unnecessary forms, making sure that they have administrative support so that when there is paperwork to do, doctors are only doing the things that only they can do.
To keep family medicine a viable career option. One of the physicians speaking alongside the health minister today said there is more to do, including making sure that doctors get paid for all of the work that they do. Sylvia Jones says those negotiations are ongoing. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. This summer, the province is boosting speed limits on a few more stretches of highway, including parts of the 401 and the 403. Those parts of the highway network will see permitted speeds of 110 kilometers an hour instead of 100. A 35-kilometer stretch of the 401 from Highway 35 to Cobourg is among the areas where the limit will be increased. The speed limit will also be raised on the 403 from Brantford to Hamilton and from Woodstock to Brantford. Parts of highways 406, 416 and 69 will see the speed limit boosted as well.
They build on the safe and successful increase to 6 sections of provincial highways my colleague, Minister Mulroney, announced in 2022 and helps align Ontario's speed limits with other provinces across Canada.
Officials say data from those earlier increases shows highways can handle the higher speeds safely. The majority of changes take effect July 12th.
Parking revenue in Toronto was way up last year,
with the city bringing in millions more than expected. CTV's Natalie Johnson has more on the impact on Toronto's finances.
For a cash-strapped city, every added dollar is a welcome windfall. And so with parking revenues up last year, the city is gladly cashing in the check, $10 million more than expected.
Our goal is getting this city back on track. And so if we can improve our revenue picture in any sorts of pots, we're very proud of the fact that Toronto Parking Authority does earn money that goes back to the city.
A new audit reveals that the Toronto Parking Authority distributed $32 million to the City of Toronto in 2023, compared to a predicted $21.6 million. The audit explaining the higher net income, quote, as the recovery from the pandemic continued to improve parking transaction volume relative to 2019 pre-pandemic. Use of both on-street and off-street parking were back up to 83% of pre-COVID levels.
That's a good thing from a revenue standpoint, and it's probably a good indicator that, the city is getting back to business and continues to get back to business.
It's a reflection of people starting to come back to the city and starting to use the city again as a public place. a place where they go out and go to work, a place where they recreate, a place where they do shopping, a place where they convene. And I think it's so important that the city functions that way.
The TPA's bike share program costs more to operate than it brings in, though its revenue did grow 37% last year following the program's expansion. The moneymaker continues to be on-street parking, which is cheaper to operate than the Green Pea lots.
I was very worried that things would slide after the pandemic and we couldn't really start to recover, because the parking authority does deliver a significant dividend to the city and we can't afford to lose revenues, and that didn't happen.
A chunk of change the city will gladly accept. $10 million more now parked in the bank. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
A new poll suggests the federal Liberals didn't win over a lot of voters with their latest budget. In the latest Leger survey, about half of respondents said they had a negative opinion of the federal budget, which was presented by Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland last Tuesday. Only 21% had a positive opinion, while nearly one-third said they didn't know or preferred not to answer. Speaking today in Oakville, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Canadians will have their say at the ballot box at the next federal election.
These are the kinds of things that we're doing to solve the challenges Canadians are facing. I am confident that as Canadians see these measures happening, they will start being more optimistic about their future the way we need them to be, to grow a strong economy, to build a stronger future. That's our focus, fairness for every generation, starting right now. And that's where we're going to continue to put all our emphasis.
The poll did show broad support for the government's plan to build millions of homes.
A former executive with SNC-Lavalin has been sentenced in connection with an investigation into criminal wrongdoing at the engineering firm. Police say Normand Morin, once a high-ranking VP at SNC-Lavalin, was handed a 3.5-year sentence after his conviction for corruption and fraud last month. The police investigation revealed SNC-Lavalin executives paid bribes of $2.23 million in order to secure a $128 million contract to repair the Jacques Cartier bridge deck in the early 2000s. SNC-Lavalin, now known as Atkins Realis, agreed in 2022 to pay Quebec nearly $30 million over 3 years to settle related criminal bribery charges.
Canada's senators appear to be spending more, with data suggesting their expenses rose by nearly 30% last year to $7.2 million. That number from a CTVnews.ca analysis of the expenses of 101 Canadian senators. That total doesn't include senators' salaries, full-time staffers, administration personnel, or committee expenses. 4 senators spent more than double the Senate average of $71,500.
After months of political wrangling in Washington, today U.S. President Joe Biden signed into law a massive foreign aid package valued at nearly $100 billion U.S. The funds include $61 billion for Ukraine in its war against Russia, $17 billion for Israel for its war against Hamas, tied to $9 billion for humanitarian aid, including for Palestinians in Gaza. There was also $8 billion in support for Taiwan's military in case there is ever an attack by China. After he signed the measure into law, Biden noted a potential deal had been blocked for months by a small group of Republicans in Congress.
But when it matters most, they stepped up and did the right thing. And I mean this sincerely. History will remember this time. History will remember this moment. For all the talk about how dysfunctional things are in Washington, when you look over the past 3 years, we see that time and again on the critical issues, we've actually come together. It hadn't always been easy.
The new military aid for Ukraine is set to arrive within days. It comes as Ukraine is on the defensive against Russia and has been losing some territory in recent months. Military analysts say a Russian offensive in the late spring or summer is likely.
Related to that same bill, one of the biggest social media apps in the world, especially among young people, has an uncertain future in the United States.
Today, the American president signed a bill which forces the Chinese company that owns TikTok to sell it or risk a ban. There's also no similar move being proposed in Canada, but the government is taking some precautions. CTV's Sarah Plowman has the details.
TikTok's time in the U.S. is ticking as the president signs a bill passed by Congress that forces the app's Chinese-owned parent company to sell or be banned.
TikTok is a major foreign threat.
U.S. lawmakers argue TikTok is a national security risk, claiming China could turn to the app to access users' data or spread propaganda. A position TikTok resists, saying it will fight back in a lawsuit.
Rest assured, we aren't going anywhere. We are confident and we will keep fighting for your rights in the courts. The facts and the Constitution are on our side.
170 million Americans use the app. Some rely on it for their income.
Have you heard of the Syngonium? TikTok allows me that unique ability to, just go and be myself in front of a large audience and have people support my business because they like who I am and what I'm about.
I don't think that Congress has a real strong grasp on how this app is set up and who owns it, because they continue to say Chinese owners, when in fact 3 of the 5 board members of TikTok are American.
The Prime Minister wouldn't comment directly on the Americans' move.
Canada will continue to look very closely at how we can make sure we're keeping Canadians safe while making sure we're taking advantage of great technologies that spur innovation.
The Trudeau government has ordered a national security review and banned TikTok from government devices, but some experts don't expect Canada to follow the U.S.
I think Canada will sit back, wait, see the massive backlash.
Besides potential legal challenges, it's also unclear who may have the money to buy the app. TikTok still has some time under the law. It can operate in the U.S. for another 9 months as is, and the president could extend that. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
An encampment of pro-Palestinian demonstrators remains in place at Columbia University after school officials extended a deadline for them to clear out while talks continue. Last Thursday, Columbia called in police who arrested more than 100 students on trespassing charges, but a new encampment came up quickly. Participants are calling on the university to end investments in companies that profit from Israel's military actions in the occupied Palestinian territories. But many Jewish students say they've been made to feel unsafe, and studies have shifted online amid the unrest. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson weighed in on the situation as he visited the university campus this afternoon.
Today, I'm here to proclaim to all those who gnash their teeth and demand to wipe the state of Israel off the map and attack our innocent Jewish students this simple truth: neither Israel nor these Jewish students on this campus will ever stand alone.
For their part, the main student groups behind the protests at Columbia say they reject anti-Semitism and include Jewish members among their ranks. Similar encampments and tensions with police have formed across other post-secondary campuses across the U.S.
A potential political scandal in Europe tonight as Spain's prime minister says he's considering stepping down from the top job within days. Pedro Sanchez has been Spain's prime minister since 2018, and his Socialist Party won re-election just last year by making a deal with Catalan separatists. Today, he announced he'd pause all public duties after a court announced an investigation into influence by peddling by his wife, Begoña Gomez. Sanchez suggested the allegations were politically motivated. Spain's conservative opposition said he should give a reasoned explanation of what took place.
There was some chaos in London today as a number of military horses ran amok in the streets of the U.S. Capitol after getting loose during a routine exercise. These scenes unfolded not far from Buckingham Palace, with horses galloping past bewildered commuters. 4 people actually received medical attention after being hurt. The British Army says all of the escaped horses have since been recovered and returned to camp. Coming up on CTV News at 6, Maple Leafs Mania. We pay a visit to a local home decked out top to bottom in blue and white, and we catch up with the super fans inside.
I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, the new capital gains rules are making waves in cottage country. Some owners are concerned that they should sell their cottages to avoid paying more in federal tax. And some realtors believe it will lead to more inventory and lower prices. I'll have my reports just ahead.
And the high pressure keeping the sky nice and clear as we get into the day tomorrow, but we're not warming up. We're staying below seasonal. So sending the kids off to school, getting yourself ready for work, a layer or 2, probably a good idea. Coming up, your full forecast, and stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
The federal government continues to face pushback on raising capital gains taxes. Yesterday it was doctors, and today cottage owners are speaking out.
Realtors say some owners will rush to sell their properties before the new rules take effect, leading to a glut of cottages on the market. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Michelle, the federal government said the tax changes will only affect the rich, but many cottages are owned by middle-class families. Some realtors say they're getting calls from worried owners wondering if they should sell before the tax deadline. Owning a cottage for many is a piece of the Canadian dream. After prices reached record highs during the pandemic, they've cooled with rising interest rates, making buying a cottage more unaffordable. As new capital gains rules come into effect, realtor John Fincham has been hearing from angry cottage owners trying to make future plans.
Most of the calls that I'm getting are from people that want to hand their cottages down as opposed to sell them. They're pretty upset right now. I mean, they've been in the family for years.
If a cottage was purchased for $250,000 and sells for $750,000, the $500,000 gain is taxed at 50% for a taxable gain of $250,000. After June 25th, the first $250,000 is taxed at 50%, but anything above is taxed at almost 67%. In this case, the taxable gain rises to almost $292,000. Those with more expensive cottages could have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars more.
It doesn't really matter if they want to hand them down or they go to sell them. It's going to cost them a lot of money either way. And they're not necessarily rich folks.
This is a major tax increase, and it's going to affect a lot of people.
Tax expert Evelyn Jack says while some owners may consider trying to sell their cottages to avoid paying additional capital gains, she feels families should not rush to make such a big decision.
Rather to err on the side of proper planning, getting the family together, making sure that the cottage passes to the right people in the family, for example, all are important considerations.
One silver lining could be if you're thinking of buying a cottage, Fincham says prices could drop by as much as 5 to 10%.
I expect an uptick in listings in the next, month and a half for sure. And it'll probably lead to a little bit of price erosion because there's already a lot of listings.
And it's recommended families with cottages get professional financial and tax advice before making any decisions. There may be ways to transfer a property or reduce the amount of tax you have to pay. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
An adorable rescue to show you tonight from Kitchener.
Babies. Yeah.
A bylaw officer in the city heard noises coming from a nearby sewer this morning, and when she investigated, she found 2 baby ducklings trapped down below. The mother duck and the duckling siblings stayed nearby as Natalie and her co-workers opened that sewer grate and managed to free the baby birds.
We just reached our hands in and pulled them up. You can tell that they were super happy just to be reunited.
And once reunited, the mother duck and her ducklings were given an escort to a nearby park.
You see how fast they went running to their mom? My goodness, they fled.
Listen.
Glad they're safe and sound. Anyway, to the forecast, I'm thinking if you're at Maple Leaf Square or maybe watching the kids play any sports tonight, you got to dress warmly.
You got to bundle up. It's cool. It felt a lot cooler today.
I mean, I didn't bring back out my winter coat. I thought about it this morning because it was a little fresh walking the dog early on. The sunshine definitely helped warm things up, but you're right. A northerly flow to the wind and a cold front that's already passed through has it feeling a little fresh outside. But for the folks down at Maple Leaf Square, the warmth and the love of the team will keep them warm, I'm sure, from the inside out. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Bit of a cool, cloudy, windy start to our Wednesday, but the good news is the sun came out and made for a really beautiful second half to the day. But that northerly flow to the wind really had an impact. We had that cold front swing through late yesterday, late showers. It continued this morning, but after that moved out, that cold front behind it, that northerly flow, we saw that bring our temperatures down really right across the province. We're at 9 right now here in the city, 7 through Windsor, 5 in Ottawa, but really right across the board, everybody experiencing that bit of a shift. Heading into this evening, we'll be at -1. We have a wind chill for the first time in a while. That's why we have that that frost advisory for a certain part of the province. That includes us here in the city, that southwestern corner and further east. The wind chill values in Parry Sound and Bancroft between -12 and -15. We're still under that advisory for us here in the city and in those same areas, so it will be a chillier night, and it's difficult if you have temperature-sensitive plants. The good news is the frost season, the ability for the frost to even happen, it is going to dissipate. And for us here in the city of Toronto, that is next Tuesday. So we're kind of getting to that end of when having those chillier temperatures are even a possibility. But for tonight, if you do have temperature-sensitive plants you can bring inside or cover with blankets, a good idea. Heading into the day tomorrow, high pressure is going to move in, and it really holds on as we head in towards our day. So we're looking at a daytime high of 9. We're shy of seasonal right across southern Ontario, but at least it's kind of sunny out there. Then we do a bit of a yo-yo. So getting into Friday, we climb back to seasonal, a southerly flow to the wind. And then getting into the evening, we hold on to a lot of that warmth. We should be at 4 or 5. We'll be sitting at 8, so not wildly above, but it will feel that little bit warmer. Getting into Saturday and Sunday, a system kind of drawing some moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, pulling in another low from kind of the central United States is going to come together, push its way east, and bring a multi-day rain event. So we head to our Saturdays, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday with scattered showers off and on. So just be prepared. Temperature-wise, though, we get up to 17 degrees as we head into Saturday. By Sunday, 22, and by Monday, 23 degrees. We begin the month of May finally a little drier and a little more sunshine. So we are saying so long to April in a soggy but really warm way. Nathan, I'll send things back to you.
Right. Thank you, Jess. Also tonight, Toronto real estate in the spotlight. The Six gets the reality show treatment, offering a window into the world of the ultra-rich in this city. It's an annual fundraiser that sees some men stop shaving their upper lips for a month.
But now Movember is funding a multi-million-dollar, multi-year initiative to support mental well-being for Indigenous men in 4 countries, including Canada. CTV's Pauline Chan has the details.
It's almost $53 million raised by Movember's annual fundraising campaign being put towards the mental and emotional well-being of Indigenous men in the U.S., Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
This is global funding that will go to support the emotional and social well-being of Indigenous men and their communities. And all of it's going to programming and evaluation of those programs and longer-term research.
$18.5 million of the total amount will be going to Canadian projects over the next 5 years.
Writer and professor Nigon Sinclair says colonization has led to Indigenous men around the world being seen as less than, deficient, and even evil.
Indigenous men in all of those countries have experienced a great deal of ostracization and marginalization by the policies and practices that have been instilled by colonial governments. What that has turned into is an over-incarceration crisis that we have involving Indigenous men and boys. Many Indigenous young men in the child welfare system and young women too, but oftentimes young men. And then a situation of addictions crisis, suicide crisis.
And certainly the solutions will address trauma, but they'll also build on the strengths of the communities.
Sinclair says the Indigenous Social and Emotional Well-Being Initiative will be Indigenous-led, and services like Work to Give, a program that allows incarcerated men opportunities to build meaningful items like this park bench, will be part of that initiative.
It's an outlet for other individuals that were in my situation. It gives them hope and purpose in regards to the end goal, which would be contributing back to the society.
Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Artificial intelligence is now making it possible for art fans to ask questions of a famous Spanish surrealist. Visitors to the Dali Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida, can now talk to an AI version of Salvador Dali. All they have to do is pick up the receiver on a model of his iconic lobster phone. But don't expect a straight answer. The artist, known for his melting clocks and other worldly creations, was often cryptic in his responses.
At a time when the dream of owning a home in Toronto is out of reach for most, there is a small segment of the market for which there is no limit to the selling price.
Now there's a new series which opens the door and shows us how the 1% live. CTV's Andrea Case interviewed the real estate agents of Lux Listings Toronto.
The Toronto luxury market has blown up.
As of October of last year, there were 240 construction cranes operating in the city of Toronto. And later this year, Toronto is slated to have the highest house prices in the country, surpassing Vancouver. But for a very few, like the clients in Lux Listings Toronto, debuting on Prime this Friday, price is not a problem.
I think Toronto has a lot to offer to the world, and the world hasn't seen the high end.
Meet the real estate agents of the super rich, Peter and Paige Torkin, veteran realtors originally from Iran. Peter arrived first, and knowing Paige was his match, he proposed over the phone. That was 30 years ago.
A lot of people ask me that question, that isn't it hard working with your husband? I think it all goes back to how healthy your relationship is from the core. Thankfully, we have a very healthy relationship, and that makes it very easy for us to work together.
The Lux Listing Show began in Sydney, Australia. Canada is the second country to join what Prime hopes will become a reality show franchise. The younger of the three agents is Brett Stark. His goal is to transition from the King of King Street to the Prince of the City. The Carleton University grad started his real estate career in Ottawa.
The type of clientele I was going after was called a Henry. High earner, not rich yet. And Henrys are great, but they pay in 3 to 5 to 10 years. We wanted to get stuff done now. So we decided to shift our marketing towards that luxury market, and we've entered it, and we've started having a lot of success with it as well.
Short of winning the lottery, and it would have to be a huge jackpot, the average person can only look from the outside in of this market. But this is entertainment, throwing the doors wide open of some of the most exclusive real estate in the country.
Is more about the warmth of the house, the character of the house, the love that family had inside that house.
Regardless of the price, that is something we can all aspire to have when we have a place to call home.
Tell me Toronto's the best city in the world.
Andrea Case, CTV News.
After the break, they are the K9 Elite, trained for years to be the ultimate companions, and today they graduated. The guide dog class of 2024 in moments.
I'm seeing my first playoff game in my life, so there you go. And I've been watching these guys since '59. So please, keep winning.
It's time. It's time that they bring it home.
Updating our top stories, it's go time for Game 3. The Leafs and Bruins hit the ice at the top of the hour, and fans are hoping the Leafs will just win in their first playoff game of the season here at home.
How can they explain that the other employers in that industry or around the airport are paying more than what they are paying for their employees here?
Striking gate gourmet workers remain on the picket lines tonight, despite a warning from their employer that lengthy job action could lead to the termination of their contracts at Pearson, putting all of them out of work permanently.
The burden of unnecessary administration takes up an alarming 19 hours a week of physicians' time, keeping them from either patient visits or a healthy work-life balance, or in most cases, both.
And finding ways to free up primary care physicians to focus on medicine instead of administrative tasks. The government introduced AI technology to give doctors a helping hand.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video or breaking news, let us know.
The parent company of Facebook and Instagram saw its shares plunge today. For a look at why, we go to B&M Bloomberg's Amber Kanwar.
Shares of Meta plunged more than 10% after reporting its latest set of quarterly results. Even though the owner of Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram grew sales by more than 25%, investors were cautious about its growth outlook, which wasn't as aggressive as some hoped. Still, there's no denying the captive audience that Meta holds across its apps. It says it now has 3.24 billion people active on its platforms every single day. The company is also on the doorsteps of the artificial intelligence revolution, with plans to pour billions into what could be the next big thing. It could also be a beneficiary as the U.S. moves to ban TikTok unless its China-based parent company sells in the next year, a move that was signed into law by U.S. President Joe Biden earlier today. Now let's take a look at the closing market numbers. The Canadian dollar was down modestly to just below 73 cents U.S. Oil prices in the U.S. slipped to below $83 per barrel, while Canadian oil prices edged up by $1 per barrel. It was a down day on the TSX, however, shedding nearly 140 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Amber Canmore in the BNN Bloomberg Newsroom.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Workers at Quebec's government-run alcohol stores walked off the job today as part of a two-day strike. The union representing employees at the SAQ say staff were moving ahead with job action, citing insufficient progress at the bargaining table. The president of the province's liquor board is confident a deal can be reached. In the meantime, several locations are closed or running on limited hours, with management working the floor.
Metrolink says one of the region's newest transit initiatives has hit a major milestone less than 2 months after its launch. On February 26th, the TTC joined the province's One Fare program. That means riders get their TTC fare refunded when transferring to or from GO, and free transfers between local providers. Metrolink says more than 5 million riders have already taken advantage of the One Fare program. It pegs the fare savings for full-time adult commuters at up to $1,600 a year.
It is graduation day for some helpful pups.
15 guide dogs from across the country are graduating today as part of the class of 2024. CTV's Mike Walker has the story.
Sherry Austin and Sassy the Black Lab share a special bond, one that has been transformative in just a short time together.
It impressed me that she can work with me what I need.
Austin has been partially blind and deaf since she was 6 months old. She was first paired with Sassy about a year ago while training to become a guide dog. Before Sassy, Austin had relied on a cane to navigate the city and complete daily tasks.
I find dogs very helpful because when I use the cane, I've almost been hit by a car. So I can't always necessarily navigate what's around me, so the guide dog is able to give me that auditory information also.
They marked a new milestone today. Sassy is among 23 guide dogs with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, graduating at 10 events across the country. Ready to take the next step with their handlers after 2 years of intense training that starts as puppies before moving on to specialized training.
We get our puppies into our volunteers' home at 8 weeks of age, and from there we start socializing them, getting them out to malls, getting them onto streetcars, subways.
Hannah Pakowski is a puppy developer trainer.
And during that time, we're just building on all sorts of basic obedience skills. We're building their confidence out in the world.
According to the CNIB, 1.5 million Canadians identify as having sight loss. The CNIB currently has 87 active guide and buddy dogs across the country.
There are hundreds of people right now that are waiting to get a dog. We have hundreds on our waiting list. That takes several things, one being donations. We are a charity. And we also need volunteer puppy raisers.
Given unprecedented demand, approximately 100 dogs are currently undergoing training. Sassy's Austin's second guide dog, now helping her do things independently again, but it means much more than that.
It's more like family.
Mike Walker, CTV News, Toronto.
Just ahead, playoff hockey curve appeal. We check out the most incredible front lawn shrine dedicated to the boys in blue and white. That's after the break.
Tonight, putting a price on natural beauty.
All those beaches and with sands is very fragile.
The new tourist tax on a popular Canadian destination, the reaction and reasoning. We'll have that story and more later on CTV National News.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special hello to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010. There are many diehard Maple Leafs fans in the city, but few show their pride in the blue and white like Michael and Sarah Adamson.
The Midtown home is a shrine to the team as the Leafs continue their playoff quest. CTV's John Musselman explains.
You might describe Michael and Sarah Adamson as Leaf Nation super fans, and they have the home to prove it.
The house is a lot of fun. We have lots of stuff here from over the years. We start off with about 6 or 7 items, and now we have 200 or 300 items.
Blue and white team colors are everywhere you look. Banners, flags, pennants. There's even a table hockey game on the front yard.
I love the community. There's people that come by from all over the place, and we will actually listen by the window, and people have come from Kingston, dressed up in full leaf gear, like a leaf dress, leaf shoes, to have their picture taken, and you see it on Instagram, and it brings people hope.
The couple decorates the home every year. The Leafs make the playoffs, a tradition that started back in 2000.
It started at our old house on Sudan, and we put up a few items, and after all the goals, the kids in the neighborhood would come out and cheer with us. And now we moved this house. We had a long time when they didn't make the playoffs, but all of a sudden now they're back in every year.
The Midtown home gets a lot of attention. This Merton Street address is known as the Leafs House. Michael Addison says it's a way for he and his wife to share their passion for the Leafs with the community and have a bit of fun.
How nervous do you get?
I'm a bundle of nerves, so I literally try to keep myself busy. I even wash dishes. I'll do whatever I can.
And they will be cheering loudly here tonight when Game 3 gets underway. John Musselman, CTV News.
They are all in.
They are all in. And you'll want to be inside watching likely, but there'll be lots of people outside and hopefully they're dressed for it.
Listen, sports fans know that you don't feel the cold while your team is playing. It's as soon as the game is done.
As long as they're winning.
Exactly. Yeah. When they lose, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so cold. But regardless, it is chilly tonight. So if you're heading out for a walk or you're going to spend time outdoors, a layer or two, probably a good idea. We're still below seasonal as we wrap up our Wednesday. We stay nice and clear, though, so something to kind of, I guess, hold on to. Temperature-wise, we're sitting at 9 here in the city, 7 through Windsor, 5 in Ottawa. It is a little cooler in those single digits. We're still under the frost advisory. The good news is heading into, well, the day tomorrow is almost identical to today, but by Friday up to 15, and by the weekend, even with the rain, 22 degrees. I'll take it and send it back to you guys.
We'll all take it. Thank you so much, Jessica. That's it for us, but be sure to join Omar Safdieddine tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Almond with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.